So, good afternoon if you're joining us. Welcome, Lion Learners here with a very empty looking holding tank. Moment underneath the side. So, shall we take a look at him then? So, here we go. Under here is the beautiful Kermit. So, let's have a close-up look at him. See how stunning he is, look. So this is Kermit, and he's called Kermit, which is possibly a male name for a frog, but I've got a sneaking feeling that Kermit might be a female, and I shall tell you more about that in a minute. So he is a fantasy horned frog from Argentina, sometimes called a Pacman frog, and grown-ups will know the word Pacman. And they call it Pacman Frog because of this big mouth that we're going to get to try and see shortly. So, oops, I think I've lost you all there. Oh, we're back again. So, he's from Argentina and he's a rainforest creature. So we've had quite a few rainforest creatures this last few weeks. And this rainforest creature would live on the forest floor. And he would try and hide himself. So what he's in at the moment is just his little holding tank, so I could show you him more easily. And this sort of stuff would be a little bit like the forest floor. So nice and moist. We try and keep them at Lion Learners very much like they would be if they were in the wild in terms of their habitat. So Kermit here is about 8 months old now. And I'm going to turn his tank round rather than turn the phone around actually, because that didn't work for me. So you see his beautiful face. And they call him a fantasy horned frog because on top of his head here, he has these little horns. And I don't want to poke him in the eye, but if I just touch, you'll see the eye go down. Look, there he goes. They have these little horns on top of their head. There you go. Hi, Kermit. Oh, he said you did poke me in the eye after all that, Mum. So they live on the forest floor, and so he would hide. He would bury himself much deeper than he is now. In his tank, he sits for quite some time in the same place. It literally doesn't move sometimes for days. And I often worry whether he's eating, but the things in his tank do disappear. So he clearly is eating. Although he's a frog, and frogs you would tend to think live in water, this particular one doesn't tend to like water. He's not actually a great swimmer either. So the females would head to water to breed, of course, and they would have lay their eggs, and their eggs would turn into tadpoles. And then about 3 to 5 weeks after the tadpoles turn into frogs, and then they start to sort of live on land. And Kermit here would tend to live on land, but in a very moist area, in a very warm climate of around 75 to 85 degrees. We have to spray his tank quite regularly. Oh, there he goes, he's on the move. That's the first time he's moved for days. And there we go, good lad. So we have to spray his tank to keep it moist and humid. And his tank sits on top of another vivarium, so he gets the temperature really nicely that he needs to keep him humid. If his temperature wasn't right in his tank, they can go into a form of hibernation, either brumation or estivation. And they've got this very clever trick. So they tend to coat their whole body in like a mucus and create like a little shell for themselves and then hide in it to keep their moisture in, which is really quite amazing, isn't it? So he's on the move, my word, Kermit. That's quite lively. So I said earlier we thought that he was actually, I thought he might have been a male, but apparently he should be croaking by now if he's a male, and he really doesn't make any noise at night. He's very quiet. So that would indicate that he's possibly a female. I'll pick him up in a minute and show you the underneath, because the males do have a darker under the sort of chin area, and he's very, very pale under the chin. So his colour is great because in the wild, this is moving a lot for me today, he would be hiding under leaf litter and moss, and then you just literally wouldn't see him. I know he's quite a vibrant green. See him with my naked eye from here. He's actually quite well, he would be quite well camouflaged. And he would sit there and wait for things to come along. We're going to give it a go, actually, to being hand-fed. He likes to sit there and wait for his prey to come walk past his mouth, and then he'll stick his tongue out and grab it and swallow it whole. So, what would eat him? Well, that's why he's got his super colour, really. So he would tend to be eaten, if he wasn't careful, by things like snakes and lizards, and he would stay hidden to try and avoid that, and he keeps himself safe with his colour. I've been asked when I've been out with him at schools and parties if his colour makes him poisonous, and it actually doesn't. He isn't a poisonous frog like the poisonous dart frogs. But of course he is an amphibian like newts and salamanders. Now I'm wearing gloves, which you'll see later, and that's really just to protect him. So Kermit and other frogs, they breathe and absorb moisture through their skin. We won't be able to see them even if I do a real close-up on him, but they've got lots of pores and they take in water and moisture through their skin. And that's why he doesn't sit in his water bowl very often. And I understand from my readings that if you do find a frog sat in its bowl quite a lot, it means that his substrate's not moistened enough for him. So I think I might be getting that quite right. But he's a lovely fella. So I think what we're going to do is I'm going to pick him up and show you in a bit more detail. And I am going to be very cautious because this species of frog, I'm trying to pick him up while I hold the camera too, he will grow fairly big, so he's not huge. I'm going to move my thumb out of the way in a minute because he actually has got teeth. See if we can get him closer to the camera. There we go. He's wriggling away. Look, let me get him a bit more firmly on my hand so I don't drop him. There he goes. Hi, fella. How are you? So, he has actually got teeth. So if I... Oh, good positioning there, mate. Thank you. So if I move him that way around, you can see here, look, that's the start of his mouth. And clearly it goes all the way round to the same on the other side. That's one big mouth for the size of this little creature. And look, and if I turn him that way, you can see where the mouth starts and ends again. So he's really all mouth and all belly. And for that reason, he can actually eat some enormous sized prey. Kermit has to live on his own. He's not permitted to live with another frog because he would actually try and eat it. They would try and eat each other. So they are cannibalistic. And if the frog was smaller than him, he would definitely eat it whole. And if it was a similar size to him, then actually they'd probably struggle. But they would definitely try to eat each other. And this species of frog, we won't be able to see them today. He's a little wriggler today. Have actually got teeth. So if he was to give a bite, it would be quite painful because they've got quite sharp teeth on their lower jaw. So there is the beautiful Kermit. So I think we should have a look and see if we can get him to eat something. That would be quite good. Let's have a look at his skin from this side. Can you see his back legs here? Look, he's got a little bit of old skin coming off. That's quite amazing, that is. So it's a bit like when we've showed you the snakes and the snake's molt. We call it sloughing in frogs, and they slough their skin off. And they sort of rub it off with their back legs till it gets round about to the feet. And then they use the feet like he's doing now, actually, pretty much. And they push that old skin forwards towards their mouth, and then they actually eat it. I guess old skin's got quite a bit of nutrition in it, really, hasn't it, mate? So, I'm going to pop him back in the tank for a second. And then what I'm going to do is going to try and see if we can get him to eat. Let's have a look. So there he is. I want to turn him. We don't... There you go. And I'm going to show you what I'm going to attempt to feed him. It may not work, folks. So in here we have, these are dubii roaches, and we have got a female in the corner sitting on top of the male. The male's got the wings, look. I'm going to try that, but it might not be hopeful. And then in here we've got some very large mealworms, and the mealworms have been eating some lettuce. That's what we call gut loading. So we've been eating them, feeding them first, sorry. And then they're nice and nutritious, and he gets to eat a nice nutritious worm. Now I'm going to use tongs for this, just because I mentioned earlier he has got teeth. So hopefully I'm trying to hold the camera and the mealworm in a way that entices him without poking him. I always feed him with bamboo tweezers if I am going to feed him, because I think if I catch him, they're quite blunt and he stays very, very safe, therefore. Come on, Kermit, are you going to eat for us? Oh, he's closing his eyes. That's not a good sign. That means he's going to have a snooze instead. So in his tank, he has got lots of hides, and that little one that he was under earlier, he doesn't go under that, if I'm honest, very often anymore. Now he's got to the size he is. But as you saw, size-wise, he's only 8 months old, so he will grow to be about, probably if he is a male, 4 inches. And they get very fat as well. And if he's a female, probably a bit bigger, 6 or 7 inches. You going to eat this mealworm for me, Kermit? And probably up to, this is quite shocking, but up to 2 kilos in weight. So can be really quite heavy. They can eat an enormous amount of food, but he doesn't look like he's going to eat today, does he? Shall we try him with a cockroach? Let's just try him with a cockroach instead. Now these I would ordinarily pick up, but let's just hold it a little closer to him. It'll just run off if I let it go. Seems very cruel, doesn't it? But actually in the animal world, that's what he eats. He's a carnivorous animal, so he only eats live food and he'll only eat insects. He will actually bizarrely eat occasionally a mouse, and when they've actually studied these in the wild, they do have a higher proportion of their food intake is small rodents and small lizards than they actually thought. And that cockroach is saved for another day, I think. So this is Kermit, a fantasy horned frog from Argentina and the South Americas in the rainforest area. A terrible swimmer, huge mouth with big teeth. And we'll have one more little look at him and we'll say cheerio. So tomorrow, the more live animals tomorrow. Say bye-bye, Kermit. Let's move him closer to the camera. There he is. Bye-bye, everyone. Bye. Down you go, mate. Good lad. Probably eat now, won't you?